You know when you're really stressed or not feeling so great about your life or about yourself? Talking to someone who understands can really help. But who is that person? How do you find them? Where do you even start? Talkspace. Talkspace makes it easy to get the support you need. With Talkspace, you can go online, answer a few questions about your preferences, and be matched with a therapist. And because you'll meet your therapist online, you don't have to take time off work or arrange childcare. You'll meet on your schedule, wherever you feel most at ease. If you're depressed, stressed, struggling with a relationship, or if you want some counseling for you and your partner, or just need a little extra one-on-one support, Talkspace is here for you. Plus, Talkspace works with most major insurers, and most insured members have a $0 copay. No insurance? No problem. Now get $80 off of your first month with promo code SPACE80 when you go to Talkspace.com. Match with a licensed therapist today at Talkspace.com. Save $80 with code SPACE80 at Talkspace.com.
The following podcast is brought to you by Iconic Nation Media. Welcome to Season 5 of Level Up Podcast. I'm your host, Kimberly Levy. I'm here to guide you on a journey of personal growth and fulfillment. Join me as we delve into the challenges of both business and personal life, aiming to discover our true selves and connect more deeply with the world around us. On this podcast, we'll explore the topics that inspire and empower us to become the best version of ourselves. From book reviews to interviews with iconic individuals, we'll have insightful conversations that resonate with your journey. And a big thank you to our sponsors, the Boys and Girls Club of America, Greater Conejo Valley, and Levy's Deli for supporting the show and helping us bring these valuable discussions to you. Please share, rate, and review the podcast. And thank you so much for listening. You can also leave your comments at Kimberly Levy on social media. Thank you for your feedback and thank you for listening. Hello and welcome back to Level Up Podcast. I'm your host, Kimberly Levy. You guys, today I'm going to talk to you about podcasting. So a little bit of behind the scenes, breaking the fourth wall, answering questions that I get on a weekly basis. So with that, let's jump right on in. Okay, one question I get all the time is, should I have a podcast? Or something I get even more frequently from people is, I really want a podcast. And so I'm here to kind of navigate the conversation and inform you of pros, cons, who should and who should not invest time, effort, money into creating a podcast. So I think the first misconception about podcasting, actually, there's probably two big misconceptions about podcasting. Number one, that it's easy and that it's for everybody. Number two is that you can make money off your podcast. Okay, so I'm going to dispel these rumors. So basically, the first thing is podcasting, as I have found out the hard way, is a full-time job. It's a full industry. And if you only have one podcast, you can certainly hire a team to produce your podcast. But there is a reason, a very good reason why podcasting is its own industry, why there are podcast producers, why there is an abundance of workflow tools, AI tools to help streamline all the different steps. And the reason why is because podcasting is so much more work beyond just getting behind a mic and, buying a mic and getting behind a mic and hitting record and that's it. Like way more steps before and after that I don't think anybody really appreciates until they actually attempt to produce one. So basically, how do we even break this down? So basically, I would say I can start articulating some of the steps that are involved with podcasting, but I will say that it's not a one-man job. It's not a side hustle. It's a full-time job to run a successful podcast, and you'll understand if I kind of go through all of those steps. The second thing is around the monetization piece. So I'll get to that second. So let's just walk through some of the basic, and I'm not going to even get into all of the nitty-gritty steps because there's probably going to be way more in between that I can't cover, or else it'll probably bore you to tears, candidly. But let's just start with the first part of it. So when you start a podcast, you need a mic and you need some kind of tool, software to actually record your podcast on. And ideally, you also can video it. And sometimes I video it, sometimes I don't. Like Abby and I, we are always videoing Welcome to the Neighborhood. I have not really done video for this podcast, although I'll be adding it soon. But you need a place and a space to record, and you really need a good mic, because if the sound quality is not proper, it's distracting to your listeners. And so that's super important that you find a space that if you do find a mic, and I can link some of the mics that I have here, but if you do get a mic, the mic does not necessarily have to be expensive, but I would not go cheap. So my mic that I love is the Shure SM58. Now that's a $99 mic, definitely nowhere near the top of the line. It's also not the bottom of the barrel, and it is a dynamic mic, so it does not pick up all of the sounds around you. So like if you are in an apartment and then there's background noise like bugs, birds, cars, those kinds of things, it will be less likely it'll pick it up. Pro tip here. I actually have spent many moons recording in my closet, and this is not uncommon, which I actually later found this out because I was podcasting totally off on my own during COVID. And so I had no idea until I got out into the world and went to conferences and started talking to different podcasters. But a closet is actually a great place to record, because for me, my closet has really thick carpet, and then all of the clothes around actually absorbs the noise. So it's really great quality sound in a closet if you can't go to a proper recording studio. You might say, well, what about if I do want to go to a proper recording studio? Well, unfortunately, that's going to set you back several $100s an episode, and it's not going to be worth it to do that. So you can also invest in like building your own studio, but really the most important thing is, if you're going to podcast, is a mic and then some kind of software to record on. So I record in Adobe Audition. A lot of people record in GarageBand, but that's sort of like just getting your mic and making sure that it connects to your computer, and making sure you understand how to actually record in whatever software you choose. Like that alone will take you time to master. Okay, so that's just like basic, right? What about the fact that you also need to figure out cover art? If you don't know what cover art is, that's the artwork that you see when you look at a podcast, and it's sort of like, like the front page. That's when you're looking in Apple and you see the podcast, like there's art there. So for me, I embarked on a whole journey to do a professional photo shoot. If you already have professional photos, you can simply use those, but then you might want to use a background remover, and some additional tools that you would need would be like Canva. If you don't know Canva, it's an app that you can do all of your graphic design. It's where you do all of your cover art. You can do marketing. So I don't know Photoshop. I don't want to know Photoshop. It's way too detailed. But if you have a professional photo, and Canva Pro, which is like $12.99, I've spoken about this app for many years, then you can at least do a background remover. You can play with templates and fonts, and it really is like really helpful. You can also size anything that you want. So there's very specific sizes that your cover art needs to be in order for Apple Podcast and Spotify to accept it. And so that gets into the next phase, is like, okay, and obviously you need to come up with like a brand. You need to come up with your podcast name. And I think even as we talk about the podcast name, you have to understand that you have to also pick a category. So parenting, for example, or self-improvement or business or sports or whatever, comedy, etc., true crime. So you actually have to really have a sense of what it is you're going to talk about and make sure you have your branding together and cover art that kind of mirrors and reflects that, etc. Okay. So then you also every episode you need your music. You need your trailer, your music. So it's a lot. You can start to see, like, I'm not even getting into the super weeds. We're still on like the level 1 must have basics just to get it out, and just to like get it going. But yes, I would say, making sure that you understand the fact that your music has to be approved by you cannot just pick any music. It has to be licensed properly, and there's various apps out there or websites that you can purchase music from that give you the licensing rights, and that's very important. I actually went on GarageBand and like went on this whole journey of learning how to make my own music. Don't necessarily recommend that strategy. It's very time consuming. It is really fun though, I have to tell you. I actually surprisingly liked it, but I just wanted to play around with music and mix my own music. And so that's what I've done. So I don't have to worry about licensing, but all of these things along the way are important things for you to understand before you just go and start a podcast. Okay, so let's just pretend you have recorded a trailer, you have your music, you have your branding and your cover art, and you have your intro. You should have an outro. You should have transition music as well. And so once you have all of that down and your niche and all that stuff, then you have to actually get the podcast out. Now, I also skipped over the fact that you should edit. You need to edit your podcast. You can certainly outsource this. Depending on if there's video, it can range anywhere from $60 or $40 all the way up to $400. So it's a wide range depending on the level of editing and if you have video or not. Video editing is very expensive. It's time consuming. And yes, so then basically at that point, you need to get it out there. So you have to register your podcast on Apple. You have to register it on Spotify. You have to have at least a trailer that you can upload. You have to have your cover art ready to go. And you have to know if it's clean or explicit and stick by that. So if you want to say shit or fuck or damn, then your podcast is explicit. And if you want to keep it clean, you can never swear. So you have to be very careful. And this comes into play because Apple or Spotify can actually pull your podcast if you don't have everything categorized correctly. And if you have something marked clean and then you start swearing, they can actually pull and shut down your podcast. So it is very important to understand all these different things. But then you have to figure out how to go onto Apple and Spotify and register your podcast and get it approved. Sometimes it takes up to a couple days depending on just the way it's going on Apple, and also making sure that you have everything the way that they want it. If your specs are not correct, or if you don't have a trailer, they probably won't accept it, or they definitely won't accept it. I should say, not probably. So there's that. Then you get into the actual distribution. So once they actually approve it, you have to put it on a hosting platform that distributes your podcast out. So you have the audio file, and then you need to upload it into a distribution platform. And then once you upload your audio file, you have to do all of your show notes, your tags. It really does go on and on. I'm still not even close to scratching the surface of all the different activities, and I've skipped things. You might want to add timestamps or episode highlights. You might, there's just all these different things that you can do. You might want to upload a video and get that mixed and have clips for social media. You also might want to have a landing page for your podcast. You might want a newsletter. You might need to add social media handles. So you can see just from like a quick, 10-minute overview of podcasting, like it's not trivial. And I haven't even gotten into like producing the content and scheduling it and batching it and consistently showing up and all of that stuff. It really does kind of go on and on. So I'm highlighting that to you because I want to paint the picture that if you are somebody that's like, oh, I want a podcast, I think that not enough people are really understanding that it's several steps. That's not to say you can't or you shouldn't, but it should at least be something that you walk into with your eyes wide open. And I'll help my friends if they are trying to figure out if they want a podcast. And, I might even let them record like a test shoot or something. But I also like to caution them up front and say, hey, just so you know, this is going to be a lot of work. It's going to be a big commitment and you're not going to make any money off it. And they all say, oh, yeah. Okay, don't worry. Yeah, I got it. But push comes to shove and, that once a week publication of your podcast comes around very quickly. So if you publish on Mondays, the next week comes up faster than you realize because, like I said, you have to sit down and you have to not only record it and edit it and do all the in-between stuff and market it, but, you might have a day job, right? Something that's income producing for you. So it's very, very difficult to just start a podcast and keep it going and be successful for the sheer fact that a lot of people just don't understand the commitment. And the biggest thing is to be consistent. Now, I've podcasted for 5 years. It'll be 5 years in next week. And wow, that's crazy. Wait, 4 years or maybe 4 years, 2020 and 2024. Okay, 4 years next week, but we're on season 5. So I've learned this the hard way. I had 1 year when I was running a different company, unrelated at all, where I only published 11 episodes. That's like not acceptable. That's dismal. And that's not good enough. So it's one of those things where if you're really wanting to do it, you really need to understand the level of commitment that you are doing. Now, there's workarounds. There's a couple ways that you can kind of shift the kind of make it work for you. If you're like, no, I still really want to do it. There's a couple kind of ways you can do it. One, you can take 2 or 3 days out of, say, a month, or every 5 to 6 weeks, take let's just say every 6 weeks, take 2 days out of your schedule and do nothing but batch your content. You have to understand there's limitations with that though, because one, you're not speaking live. So if you talk about current events, that's going to be really hard to do to batch your content. The second thing is, I didn't even talk about interviews. If you're going to start interviewing people, that's a whole other layer where you have to reach out to people. You have to get them scheduled. For me, I do pre-interviews oftentimes if I don't know them. You sometimes have to create sort of like an outline. I didn't even talk about creating outlines or any of the details. Like, this is just such a high level. I can't stress enough how this is such a high level overview because it really is so much more detailed than all of this. But basically, if you're going to batch your content, you have to realize that you also have to schedule interviews around your schedule that you're desiring, which I'm sure is tricky. Now, people do it. It's just that they're very well orchestrated in their execution of it. And it does require either additional help from, an assistant or an admin or a producer or somebody that can really help you with all these different steps. Okay, so that's kind of the production. And then I didn't even talk about the fact that, by the way, there's so many podcasts out there and so many great ones out there that after you do every single thing and you figure all of those steps out, and you spend money and invest your time and your effort and you develop content, etc., people might not listen, which is the reason why you see that a lot of people start and stop podcasts. Okay. So this gets really discouraging if you're somebody that really has tried podcasting and you don't have an audience and you're not famous. It's very difficult, which kind of leads me to my next point about the monetization. You have to pretty much expect you're not going to make money off your podcast. And the reason for that is because there are milestones that you have to hit to be able to make even any money. So you can already kind of start to see where this goes. So you might be wondering, well, then how do people make money in podcasting? Well, the reality is, unless you are a macro influencer or you have a serious audience or a really, really great niche, like something super nuanced and weird, almost like a super niched podcast, like the art of sailing, or I don't know, something super niched, they do better because there's like people that are looking for that, and there's not as much competition and as much content around these like super weird niches. So some of the people that are in niches do really well. Like, and I mean like super niche down things. Like, for example, you could say like, oh, the car collectors, like the car collectors podcast, or like, but it would have to be even more specific than that because podcasting has expanded so much that car collectors is not even, that's still fairly broad. So it'd have to go like, antique car collectors adventures, and like have like a very unique show as to how you investigate and try out those kinds of cars, like exotic or whatever, like antique cars or something. You guys get the point. So something super, when I say super niche, I mean like really rogue, really, really niche down. Yes. So those podcasts do well, surprisingly, but it's very hard to be successful at a podcast financially. So as you increase your audience, the advertising rates go way up. And that's why you start to see all these celebrities that are able to, podcast very successfully. They have brand deals already, so they can expand their brand deals. And advertisers are throwing money at podcasting because this is an audio revolution that we're in, and we're not going backwards into radio, which is why I'm like, oh, I want to start my podcast network because I love podcasting. I want to help other podcasters get their voice out and their brands out there. But I also understand it's a full scale business that needs to support these podcasters. So that's sort of the ins and outs of podcasting. And if you need a podcast or not, that's just something I want you to be aware of. Now, okay, so we covered kind of all the steps, kind of soup to nuts of podcasting at a super high level and why it's hard to do, especially on your own. And especially if it's not your full-time job. And if you're self-taught, it takes quite a bit of time and resources to just learn everything, and commitment to consistently produce good content and market it and get the word out, etc. Second, we covered the fact that you're probably not going to make money unless you're, an influencer or you're famous and you have a real audience that you can easily convert to listeners. That's where the money is. When does podcasting make sense for you? So if you're just a regular person and you don't have anything to sell, probably not the right thing for you unless you're just like trying to do it as a hobby, in which case you absolutely can and should. The people that are not famous that still can benefit from having a podcast are people that are trying to sell something. So maybe you have some other main business. So for example, you have a law practice that you own and you want to warm up your clients and spread the word about your new law practice, and you want to start attracting people into your business. So that's one example. So, or like you could even be an accountant, right? You have your own business. You can be a speech therapist. You can be, something in child education. So basically a podcast can be really good for somebody that is starting a business or has a newer business and is still trying to actively recruit new people into their business. That's why a lot of business coaches, for example, have podcasts, because why? What happens is the podcast warms up the audience. It builds know, like, and trust. So a podcast is something that, the power of the voice and having somebody in your ear, it builds a very intimate, deep connection, and it's very powerful to have somebody's voice with you when you are picking up your kids from school and you're driving in your car, or you're on your run, or you're grocery shopping, or you're cleaning your house, or whatever the case may be. It's very like if you listen to podcasts, like you start to really feel like you know the host. And so the power of the voice is huge, and you build a ton of trust between you and the host. And so I think if you're starting a business and you are not maxed out in your business, it's a great way to elevate your brand and your credibility and to really just put your name out there. And you can take your podcast episodes and you can blast your email list. Another way of getting out there without having to do all the heavy lifting is just simply being an interview guest. So a lot of people, they just prefer to be a guest on podcasts because they can just show up, record an episode, kind of market themselves, and then leave. So that's kind of another thing. If you want to build your personal brand or get the message out about your business, then that's something you want to do. I think if you have a business, but you're already kind of maxed out and you're spread thin and you're trying to do less in your business, I would probably say don't do a podcast. In fact, I was with a friend of mine that did a brilliant test shoot, but honestly, it's like if you're trying to do less, I don't want to push you to start a podcast because you're not going to make money. You're going to get more clients most likely if, over time after you've built some audience. But if you're not really looking for new clients, it probably is not worth all the time and effort. So those are just some thoughts about when it does and does not make sense to start a podcast. And you can outsource a lot of the functions, but let's just keep in mind that's a real expense for you on a very consistent basis. And candidly, like even adding, let's just say $400 a month, let's say that you have relatively inexpensive editing between the software and this and that, whatever you invest in, let's just call it $400 a month or even $300 a month. That's an expense you're probably not going to recoup directly, again, unless you have an audience or brand deals or something like that. So, it's something that I wanted to address because I talk about podcasting all day long with people. People love podcasts. I'm obsessed with them clearly. And I just love every single thing about it. I love editing. I love the graphic design. I love the branding. I love all of it. So those are just some questions I wanted to address because I know a lot of people out there are like very eager and excited at the prospect of podcasting. And I feel like I want to put out the word as to, dispelling what it seems like versus what it is. It's really quite a bit of a commitment, a lot of time and effort. And if you don't have a very clear purpose and you're not using it as like a lead gen, like even if you're a real estate agent, it could be a great lead gen because it's a way to separate yourself from a pool of other real estate agents. And unless you're on a TV show or something like that, it's hard to kind of really differentiate. So it's definitely a brand builder. It's definitely kind of like a business card. Like it's a level of credibility that you get when people hear you have a podcast. They're very impressed. They're like, oh, really? What is it called? What is it about? It's a great conversation starter. So if I was a real estate agent, 100% I'd have a podcast. If I was in any kind of sales job, I would definitely, that's to me for sure. If you're trying to get leads and build your brand and your name and like your business, you should definitely do it because what happens is you're warming up your audience to know, like, and trust you. And then they reach out to you and you can convert them into clients. And so that's kind of my 2 cents. And I know a lot of you are very excited at the prospect of starting a podcast, but if you now understand why it's not as easy as it seems to a high, to an extent or at a high level, hopefully this helps you. I will say if you are interested in being a guest in either this podcast or one of our other podcasts on my network, reach out because we do love to have guests and have great conversations. We don't accept all guests for every podcast. It really does depend, but we are happy to have a chat with you. So go ahead and email me or my team, info@iconicnationmedia.com. You can also go onto our website and fill out a form. If you're interested in becoming a guest, we've been receiving a lot of inquiries, which is awesome. It's such a blessing. And we would love to chat with you about it. But I hope this episode was informative. I hope it did not burst your bubble too much. But like I said, if any of these things sound good and you want additional resources, you can reach out and I'm happy to point you in the right direction. I have all different resources and tools in the space. So if you're not really sure what to do as a next step, you can certainly reach out to me directly. I'm at Kimberly Levy on Instagram, at Iconic Nation Media as well, and send me a DM. Okay. So thank you guys for listening. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it was helpful to you, and I'll talk to you soon. All right. That is it for today. Thank you very much for listening, and be sure to follow us at Iconic Nation Media and send us a direct message and comment on some of our posts so that we can hear your feedback and incorporate them into our show. We appreciate you listening, and we look forward to catching you next week.
You know when you're really stressed or not feeling so great about your life or about yourself? Talking to someone who understands can really help. But who is that person? How do you find them? Where do you even start? Talkspace. Talkspace makes it easy to get the support you need. With Talkspace, you can go online, answer a few questions about your preferences, and be matched with a therapist. And because you'll meet your therapist online, you don't have to take time off work or arrange childcare. You'll meet on your schedule, wherever you feel most at ease. If you're depressed, stressed, struggling with a relationship, or if you want some counseling for you and your partner, or just need a little extra one-on-one support, Talkspace is here for you. Plus, Talkspace works with most major insurers, and most insured members have a $0 copay. No insurance? No problem. Now get $80 off of your first month with promo code SPACE80 when you go to Talkspace.com. Match with a licensed therapist today at Talkspace.com. Save $80 with code SPACE80 at Talkspace.com.